You broke his leg. I will break your life.
The hospital called at 3:17 in the morning, and that's when I knew my life was about to become a living nightmare. Not because of what they told me, that my son Danny was in the emergency room with a broken leg and possible concussion, but because of what I'd discover when I got there. Mr. Thompson, this is Mercy General Hospital. Your son Daniel has been admitted to our emergency department. I shot up in bed, immediately awake. What happened? Is he okay? He's stable, but he's asking for you. Can you come in right away? I threw on clothes and grabbed my keys, not bothering to wake Sarah. She'd been working late again at the law firm, probably fell asleep in her office like she'd been doing more and more lately. The drive to the hospital took 12 minutes through empty streets, my mind racing through worst-case scenarios. Danny was sitting up in bed when I found him, his left leg in a cast, a nasty bruise covering half his face. At 19, he was built like I used to be. Solid, athletic, with the kind of honest eyes that made people trust him immediately. "Dad," he said when he saw me, relief flooding his voice. "Jesus, Danny, what happened? Were you drinking? Did you crash the car?" He looked away, and I could see something else in his expression now. Shame, anger, something that made my stomach clench. "Dad, I need to tell you something, and you're not going to like it." I pulled up a chair, trying to keep my voice calm. "Just tell me." "I went home tonight around midnight. I forgot my statistics textbook, and I have that exam tomorrow. Today, I guess." He paused, wincing as he shifted position. "The front door was unlocked, which was weird, so I went upstairs to grab the book from my room." My hands were already clenching into fists, some primitive part of my brain sensing what was coming. "I heard noises coming from your bedroom. Loud noises. I thought maybe someone had broken in, so I grabbed the baseball bat from the hall closet and pushed open the door. The room felt like it was tilting. Danny. Mom was there, Dad, with her boss, Richard Blackwood. They were in your bed." The words hit me like a physical blow. Richard Blackwood, the smooth-talking owner of Blackwood Premium Motors, the biggest car dealership in town. The guy who'd been sending Sarah expensive gifts for closing big cases. The guy she'd been having dinner meetings with 3 nights a week for the past 2 months. "I lost it," Danny continued. "I started yelling at them, telling Blackwood to get out of our house. That's when his security guys showed up." "Security guys?" "2 big guys in suits. They must have been waiting downstairs as lookouts or something. They grabbed me, and when I tried to fight them off, one of them shoved me down the stairs. That's how I broke my leg." I stared at my son, this good kid who'd walked into his own home and found his mother destroying our family, and felt something cold and dark settle in my chest. Where are they now? I don't know. The neighbors called the ambulance after they heard me screaming. Mom never even came downstairs to check if I was okay. I stood up, pacing to the window. Outside, the city was starting to wake up. Early commuters, hospital staff changing shifts, the normal world going about its business while mine collapsed. "Dad, there's something else." I turned back to him. "This isn't the first time. I've seen Blackwood's car in our driveway before when you were at work, and Jessica..." He paused, referring to his younger sister. "Jessica's been posting stuff on her Instagram about how embarrassing our family is, how she wishes she had a different last name. I think she knows too. 22 years of marriage, 22 years of working double shifts at the engineering firm to pay for Sarah's law school, then supporting her through the lean years when she was building her practice. 22 years of believing we were building something together. Dad, what are you going to do?" I looked at my son, loyal, honest Danny who'd tried to defend our home and got his leg broken for it, and felt the last piece of my old self crumble away. "I'm going to make them pay for what they did to you," I said quietly. "All of them." I left the hospital at 6 a.m. with a promise to Danny that I'd be back later with his textbook and some real food. The drive home took longer than usual. I kept having to pull over as waves of rage and nausea hit me. By the time I turned onto Maple Street, I'd made a decision. The house looked normal from the outside. Same white colonial I'd been paying the mortgage on for 15 years. Same flower beds Sarah had insisted on planting last spring. Same driveway where I'd taught both kids to drive. Blackwood's silver Mercedes was gone, but Sarah's BMW was still there. I used my key to enter through the front door, moving quietly. The house felt different somehow, violated. There were wine glasses on the kitchen counter, expensive champagne I'd never seen before. A man's watch on the coffee table that definitely wasn't mine. I climbed the stairs, each step deliberate. The bedroom door was closed, and I could hear the shower running in the master bathroom. I pushed open the door. The bed was unmade, sheets twisted and scattered across the floor. Sarah's clothes were mixed with a man's suit. Expensive fabric, the kind Blackwood always wore. The smell of unfamiliar cologne hung in the air. The shower stopped running. I sat down in the reading chair by the window, the same chair where I used to read bedtime stories to Danny and Jessica when they were little. The bathroom door opened, and Sarah walked out wearing her silk robe, toweling her hair dry. She saw me and froze. "Tom," her voice was carefully controlled, but I could see the calculation in her eyes. Sarah had always been good at thinking on her feet. It's what made her such a successful attorney. "How's Danny?" I asked conversationally. "What do you mean?" "Our son, the one with the broken leg, the one who's in the hospital because your boyfriend's thugs pushed him down the stairs." She sat down on the edge of the bed, maintaining eye contact. This was Sarah in full lawyer mode now, calm, strategic, looking for angles. "Tom, I know how this looks." "Do you?" "Because it looks like you've been screwing Richard Blackwood in our bed while I've been working 60-hour weeks to pay for your partnership track at the firm. It's not that simple." "Then explain it to me. Make it simple." She was quiet for a long moment, and I could practically see her assembling her argument. "We've been growing apart for years, Tom. You know that. We barely talk anymore except about bills and schedules. When Richard and I started working together on his legal issues, we connected in a way that you and I haven't in a long time. So you decided to connect with him in my bed? I never meant for it to happen this way." I laughed, a sound with no humor in it. "Which part? The affair or getting caught?" "Danny shouldn't have been here. He was supposed to be at school." "Right. It's Danny's fault for coming home to his own house." Sarah's composure cracked slightly. "Those security men overreacted. Richard only brings them because he carries a lot of cash for the dealership. When Danny started shouting and swinging that bat around, they thought he was trying to rob us. Our son. They thought our son was trying to rob us. They didn't know who he was. It was dark, and he was screaming and waving a tool in his own house." I stood up, and Sarah instinctively moved backward on the bed. "Where's your boyfriend now?" "He left after the ambulance came. Tom, we need to talk about this rationally." "Rationally?" I walked over to the dresser where the man's watch was sitting. A Rolex, probably worth more than I made in 2 months. "Is it rational that you've been lying to me for months? Is it rational that you let your boyfriend bring armed security to our home? Is it rational that our son is in the hospital because you couldn't keep your legs closed?" "Don't talk to me like that." "Like what? Like a cheating wife who got our kid hurt?" Sarah stood up, her lawyer mask sliding back into place. "If you're going to speak to me like that, I'll have to ask you to leave." "Leave? This is my house, Sarah. I've been paying the mortgage for 15 years. It's our house, and I have just as much right to be here as you do. More, actually, since you're clearly in an unstable emotional state." I stared at her, this woman I'd loved since college, and realized she was already 3 steps ahead of me. She was already planning her next move, already figuring out how to spin this to her advantage. "You're going to divorce me," I said. It wasn't a question. "I think we should both consider all our options. And you're going to try to take everything." "Tom, I'm not the villain here. We're both adults who've grown apart. These things happen. These things happen." I picked up Blackwood's watch, feeling its weight. "Does he know you're planning to divorce me, or are you keeping that as a surprise?" "Richard and I haven't made any decisions about the future." "But you've discussed it." Sarah's silence was answer enough. I pocketed the watch and headed for the door. "Where are you going?" "To see our son, the one you haven't bothered to visit yet." "Tom, wait. We need to set some ground rules about how we're going to handle this situation." I turned back to her. "Here's a ground rule, Sarah. Stay away from Danny until his leg heals. He doesn't need to see his mother right now. You can't keep me from my own son. Watch me." I left her standing in our bedroom, surrounded by the evidence of her betrayal, and drove back to the hospital. But first, I made a stop at Blackwood Premium Motors. Blackwood Premium Motors sat on 3 acres of prime real estate on the north side of town, all gleaming glass and chrome with rows of luxury cars arranged like jewelry in a display case. I'd driven past it 1,000 times over the years, never imagining I'd have any reason to go inside. It was 7:30 in the morning, still early, but the service department was already open. I parked my 10-year-old Ford pickup between a BMW and a Mercedes, feeling like a trespasser. The showroom was impressive. Marble floors, soft lighting. The kind of place where people came to spend more on a car than I made in 2 years. A young saleswoman approached me with a practiced smile. "Good morning, I'm Jennifer. How can I help you today?" "I'm looking for Richard Blackwood. Is he in yet?" Her smile flickered slightly. "Mr. Blackwood doesn't usually come in until 9. Is there something I can help you with?" I pulled out the Rolex and set it on her desk. "He left this at my house last night. I thought he might want it back." Jennifer stared at the watch, then at me, clearly trying to process what I'd just said. Let me see if I can reach him." She picked up her phone and walked away, speaking in low, urgent tones. I used the time to look around the showroom, noting the security cameras, the layout, the expensive cars that probably cost more than my house. Jennifer returned with 2 large men in dark suits. Blackwood's security team, I assumed, probably the same guys who'd broken my son's leg. "Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to leave," the bigger one said. His voice was professionally polite, but his posture suggested he was ready for trouble. "I'm just returning property," I said mildly. "Seems like the right thing to do. Mr. Blackwood isn't available right now." "That's okay. I can wait." The 2 security men exchanged glances. The smaller one, though still considerably larger than me, stepped closer. "Sir, you need to leave the premises immediately." "Or what?" "Or we'll escort you out." I looked at these 2 men who'd hurt my son and felt that cold darkness in my chest expand. "You mean like you escorted my 19-year-old son down a flight of stairs last night?" Their expressions changed. Now they knew who I was. "That was an unfortunate misunderstanding," the bigger one said carefully. "Misunderstanding?" I picked up the Rolex. "My son is in the hospital with a broken leg because of your misunderstanding. Your son was armed and aggressive. We responded to what appeared to be a home invasion. In his own home. We didn't know that at the time." Jennifer was watching this exchange with growing alarm, probably wondering if she should call the police. Other employees were starting to notice the commotion. "Where's your boss?" I asked. "Mr. Blackwood is unavailable. Tell him Tom Thompson stopped by. Tell him I'll be seeing him real soon." I started walking toward the exit, then turned back. "Oh, and gentlemen, next time you put your hands on my son, make sure you can finish the job. Because if you can't, you're going to have to deal with me." I left them standing in the showroom, probably trying to decide whether that constituted a threat. Let them wonder. My next stop was the office of Sarah's law firm. Harrison, Mitchell, and Associates occupied the top 3 floors of the tallest building downtown, the kind of prestigious address that impressed clients and intimidated opponents. I'd been here exactly twice before, once for Sarah's partnership celebration and once for a Christmas party where I'd felt completely out of place among all the lawyers and their spouses. The receptionist was a polished young woman who looked like she'd stepped out of a magazine. "Good morning. I'm here to see Sarah Thompson." "Do you have an appointment?" "I'm her husband." That got her attention. She picked up her phone and spoke quietly, then looked back at me with a carefully neutral expression. "Mrs. Thompson is in a meeting right now. Would you like to wait?" "I'll wait." She directed me to a leather chair in the reception area, surrounded by legal journals and awards the firm had won over the years. I recognized Sarah's name on several of them. She really was good at her job. I had to give her that. After 20 minutes, Sarah emerged from a conference room with 2 other attorneys and a man in an expensive suit. She saw me and her step faltered for just a moment before she recovered. "Tom, what are you doing here?" "We need to talk. I'm in the middle of a client meeting. It's important." She excused herself from her colleagues and walked over to where I was sitting. "This isn't appropriate. You can't just show up at my workplace. Like Blackwood shows up at our house? Keep your voice down." "Why, embarrassed?" Sarah glanced around the reception area, aware that we were attracting attention. "Come to my office." Her office was impressive. Corner location with windows overlooking the city, expensive furniture, diplomas and awards covering one wall. She closed the door and turned to face me. "What do you want, Tom?" I pulled out Blackwood's watch and set it on her desk. "He forgot this." She stared at the Rolex without touching it. "You went to the dealership." I thought he might want it back. Funny thing, though, his security team didn't seem happy to see me. "Tom, you can't go around harassing Richard's employees. That could be considered stalking." "Stalking." I sat down in one of her client chairs. "Is that the angle you're going to use?" "I'm not using any angle. I'm trying to prevent you from doing something stupid that you'll regret." "Like what? Like trusting my wife? Like believing we had a marriage worth fighting for?" Sarah moved behind her desk, putting it between us. "Tom, I know you're hurt and angry, but you need to think about this logically. We have 2 children to consider. We have assets to protect. We need to handle this like adults. Adults, I laughed. Oh, was it adult behavior to screw your boss in our bed while our son was at college? What happened between Richard and me doesn't change the fact that we need to approach this divorce rationally. Divorce. So it's decided then. Sarah was quiet for a moment, and I could see her choosing her words carefully. I think it's what's best for everyone. Everyone being you and Blackwood. Everyone being our family. Tom, we haven't been happy for years. You know that. I thought we were working through a rough patch. I didn't know you were working through it with someone else. It wasn't supposed to happen this way. But it did happen. And now our son is in the hospital because of it. Sarah's professional composure cracked slightly. That was an accident. Richard's security team didn't know Danny was our son. They knew he was a 19-year-old kid who belonged in that house. They knew he wasn't a threat to 2 grown men. Danny was armed, Tom. He had a baseball bat. In his own home, protecting what he thought was his family. Sarah sat down, looking suddenly tired. What do you want from me? Do you want me to apologize? Fine, I'm sorry. I'm sorry it happened this way. I'm sorry Danny got hurt. I'm sorry you had to find out like this. But I'm not sorry it's over between us. That hurt more than I'd expected it to. Over, just like that. It's been over for a long time. We just hadn't admitted it yet. I stood up, leaving the watch on her desk. You might want to give that back to your boyfriend. Tell him I'll be in touch. Tom, don't do anything stupid. I'm serious. Richard has resources, connections. If you try to cause trouble for him, it's going to backfire on you. Is that a threat? It's advice from someone who still cares about you, whether you believe that or not. I headed for the door, then turned back. One more thing, Sarah. When you're dividing up our assets, remember that half of everything includes half the debt, including the $60,000 I borrowed against my 401k to pay for your partnership buy-in. Her face went pale. She'd forgotten about that loan. We'll be in touch, I said, and left her sitting in her expensive office, staring at another man's watch. I needed to talk to someone, and there was only one person I trusted completely. Mike Kowalski had been my best friend since high school, the best man at my wedding, godfather to both my kids. He owned a small construction company and lived in the same neighborhood where we'd both grown up. I found him at a job site, overseeing the renovation of an old warehouse. Mike was built like a brick wall, short, broad, with hands like ham hocks and a face that had seen its share of fights. He took one look at me and sent his crew on an early lunch break. You look like heck, Tommy. I feel worse than I look. We sat on a stack of lumber while I told him everything. The affair, Danny's injury, my confrontations with Blackwood and Sarah. Mike listened without interrupting, his expression growing darker with each detail. Jesus Christ, he said when I finished. What kind of animals break a kid's leg? The kind Sarah's been sleeping with. Mike was quiet for a moment, processing. What are you going to do? I don't know yet, but I'm not going to let them get away with this. Tommy, you need to be careful. Guys like Blackwood, they don't play fair. You go after him. He's going to come after you with everything he's got. Let him try. Mike studied my face, and I could see him recognizing something there. The same look I'd had in high school when bigger kids tried to push me around. The same stubborn refusal to back down that had gotten me into trouble more than once. You remember what happened to Jimmy Torino? Mike asked. I remembered. Jimmy had tried to expose corruption in the city council 5 years ago. Within 6 months, his construction business had been shut down by code violations. His wife had left him, and he'd ended up moving to Florida to start over. This is different, I said. Is it? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you're about to take on a guy who owns half the city council and has enough money to bury you in legal bills. So I should just roll over? Let him destroy my family and walk away? Mike sighed. No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying you need to be smart about this. You need a plan. I'm open to suggestions. First thing, you need a good lawyer. Not Sarah's firm, someone who specializes in divorce and custody cases. I can't afford a lawyer like that. You can't afford not to have one. Sarah's going to come after you with everything she's got, and she's got professional advantages you don't have. I knew he was right, but the thought of spending money I didn't have on a legal fight I might not win made my stomach clench. What else? Document everything, every conversation, every interaction with Blackwood or his people. Keep a record of Danny's medical bills, his injury, everything related to that night. You think I should sue them? I think you should have options. Right now, you're reacting to what they're doing. You need to get ahead of this. Start making them react to you. We talked for another hour, Mike helping me think through the practical aspects of what was coming. The divorce proceedings, custody battles, financial arrangements. By the time I left, I had a clearer picture of the war I was about to fight. But I also had something else. A growing certainty that legal channels weren't going to be enough. Guys like Blackwood didn't get where they were by playing by the rules, and they didn't get stopped by lawsuits and restraining orders. They got stopped by people who were willing to break the rules right back. The law office of Patricia Hendricks was nothing like Sarah's firm. No marble floors or impressive views, just a practical suite in a strip mall between a dry cleaner and a tax preparation service. But Mike had assured me she was good, and more importantly, she was affordable. Patricia Hendricks was a woman in her 50s with graying hair and intelligent eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. She listened to my story without taking notes, occasionally asking clarifying questions. Mr. Thompson, I'm going to be direct with you. Your wife has significant advantages in this situation, such as she's an attorney with an established practice. She has higher earning potential. She's been the primary caretaker for your children. That's not true. I've been just as involved in raising Danny and Jessica. Can you prove that? Do you have documentation showing your involvement in school activities, medical appointments, parent-teacher conferences? I thought about it. Sarah had always handled most of that stuff because her schedule was more flexible than mine. Some of it. Your wife is going to argue that she should have primary custody of your daughter and probably your son too, despite his age. She's going to argue that she should keep the house because that's where the children have lived their entire lives. And she's going to argue that you're emotionally unstable and potentially dangerous.
Based on what?
Based on your confrontations with Mr. Blackwood and his employees. I'm assuming she's documented those incidents? I thought about Sarah's calculating expression when I'd left the house that morning. Probably. Mr. Thompson, I need to ask you this directly. Have you threatened anyone? Have you made any statements that could be construed as threatening violence? I remembered my words to Blackwood's security team at the dealership. Maybe. Patricia leaned back in her chair. That's going to be a problem. Your wife is going to paint you as an angry, unstable man who can't control his temper. She's going to use that to justify taking everything, the house, the kids, probably alimony. So what do you suggest? First, no more confrontations. No more visits to the dealership. No more surprise appearances at your wife's office. From now on, all communication goes through me. And second, we need to find leverage. Your wife is having an affair with a married man. Blackwood is married. Oh, yes. 25 years, 3 children. His wife comes from old money. Her family has been in this town for 4 generations, if Mrs. Blackwood finds out about the affair, it could destroy him financially and socially. I felt a spark of hope. So we threaten to expose them? We don't threaten anything, but we make sure your wife understands that her affair could become very public very quickly if she tries to destroy you in the divorce proceedings. Is that legal? It's not illegal to tell the truth. And the truth is that your wife committed adultery, which is still grounds for divorce in this state and can affect property division. Patricia spent the next hour explaining the divorce process, what I could expect, and what I needed to do to protect myself. By the time I left her office, I had a clearer understanding of the legal battlefield ahead, but I also had something else, the name and address of Mrs. Eleanor Blackwood, and the knowledge that she came from a family that valued reputation above almost everything else. Eleanor Blackwood lived in the kind of house that made a statement, a sprawling Tudor mansion on Elm Street, surrounded by perfectly manicured grounds and the kind of old-growth trees that took generations to mature. I'd driven past it many times over the years, never imagining I'd have any reason to stop. I parked across the street and studied the house, trying to work up the courage to walk up to the front door. What was I going to say? Hi, I'm Tom Thompson, and your husband is screwing my wife? The decision was made for me when a woman emerged from the house, heading toward a silver Jaguar in the circular driveway. Even from a distance, I could see she was elegant. Tall, well-dressed, moving with the kind of confidence that came from never having to worry about money. I got out of my truck and walked across the street. Ha, Mrs. Blackwood? She turned, and I got my first close look at Eleanor Blackwood. She was probably in her early 50s, with silver hair styled in an expensive cut and the kind of bone structure that suggested good breeding. Her clothes were understated, but clearly expensive, the kind of wealth that didn't need to show off. Yes? My name is Tom Thompson. I wonder if I could speak with you for a few minutes. Her expression was politely curious but guarded. I'm sorry, do we know each other? No, ma'am, we don't, but I think we have something in common. Oh? I took a deep breath. We're both married to people who are having an affair with each other. The color drained from her face. For a moment, I thought she might faint, but she steadied herself against the car. I think you'd better come inside, she said quietly. Eleanor Blackwood's living room was exactly what I'd expected. Antique furniture, oil paintings, Persian rugs that probably cost more than I made in a year. She offered me coffee, which I accepted more for something to do with my hands than because I wanted it. Tell me, she said simply. I told her everything, the affair, finding them in my bed, Danny's injury, the confrontations with her husband's security team. She listened without interrupting, her face growing paler with each detail. How long? She asked when I finished. I don't know for sure. My son said he'd seen your husband's car at our house before. Probably a few months, at least. Eleanor was quiet for a long time, staring into her coffee cup. When she looked up, her eyes were bright with unshed tears, but her voice was steady. Richard has had affairs before. I've always chosen to look the other way for the sake of our children and our family's reputation. But this, she paused. Your son was injured because of this affair. Broken leg and concussion. He's still in the hospital. And Richard's security men did this? Yes, ma'am. Eleanor stood up and walked to the window, looking out at her perfectly maintained grounds. Mr. Thompson, what do you want from me? I want your husband to pay for what he did to my son, and I want my wife to understand that actions have consequences. And you think I can help with that? I think you have more power than you realize. She turned back to me. Richard's business depends heavily on his reputation in this community. His customers trust him because he's seen as a family man, a pillar of the community. If that image were damaged, it would hurt him financially. It would destroy him financially and socially. She paused. My family has deep roots in this town, Mr. Thompson. The Blackwood dealership exists because my father helped Richard get started 25 years ago. My family's name is on half the buildings downtown. I could see where this was going. And if people knew he was having an affair with a married woman whose son was injured by his security team? Eleanor's voice was getting stronger, more determined. It would be a scandal that would follow him for years. What are you thinking? Eleanor walked back to her chair and sat down, her posture straight and dignified. I'm thinking it's time my husband faced some consequences for his behavior. And I'm thinking your wife should understand what it feels like to have her reputation destroyed. How? Leave that to me, Mr. Thompson. I have resources you don't, and I know how to use them. She paused. But I want something in return. What? I want your promise that when this is over, when they've both paid for what they've done, you'll walk away. No more confrontations, no more revenge. Just walk away and rebuild your life. I thought about Danny in the hospital, about Sarah's cold calculation, about Blackwood's smug confidence that his money and connections would protect him. I promise, I said. Eleanor smiled for the first time since I'd arrived. Then let's begin. Eleanor Blackwood was a woman of her word. Within 48 hours of our conversation, the first domino fell. I was visiting Danny at the hospital when my phone rang. It was Patricia Hendricks, my lawyer, and she sounded excited. Tom, where are you right now? At the hospital with my son. Why? Turn on Channel 7 News, right now. I found a television in the waiting area and switched to the local news station. The anchor was just beginning a story that made my heart race. In a shocking development, prominent local businessman Richard Blackwood is facing multiple allegations of improper conduct involving his private security team. Channel 7 has obtained exclusive footage showing Blackwood's security personnel in what appears to be an altercation with a teenager at a private residence. The footage was grainy, clearly shot from a neighbor's security camera, but it showed two large men forcibly removing someone from a house, someone who was obviously young and not presenting any real threat. The timestamp showed it was from the night Danny was injured. The teenager in question, whose identity we're protecting due to his age, was hospitalized with serious injuries following this incident. Sources tell Channel 7 that the altercation occurred when the young man discovered Blackwood in his family home with the boy's mother. I stared at the television, hardly believing what I was seeing. Somehow, Eleanor had gotten hold of security footage from our neighbor's house and leaked it to the media. The story continued for another 2 minutes, detailing Blackwood's business practices, his political connections, and raising questions about whether his security team was properly licensed and trained. By the time it ended, Richard Blackwood's reputation had taken a devastating hit. My phone was ringing again. This time it was Mike. "Tommy, are you watching the news?" "Just finished." "Holy crap, man. How did this happen?" "I made some new friends." "This is just the beginning, isn't it?" "I hope so." The next call was from Sarah, and she was furious. "Tom, what did you do?" "I don't know what you mean." "Don't play games with me? That news story, the security footage, how did they get it?" "Maybe you should ask your boyfriend. He's the one who brought thugs to our house." "This is going to destroy him, Tom, his business, his reputation, everything." "Good. You don't understand. If Richard goes down, he's going to take everyone with him, including me." That caught my attention. "What do you mean?" "I've been handling some of his legal work. If there's a scandal, if people start investigating his business practices..." She trailed off, but I could hear the fear in her voice. "Sarah, what kind of legal work?" "I can't discuss that with you. Attorney-client privilege." "Is it illegal?" "It's complicated." "That's not an answer. Tom, you need to make this stop. Call off whoever you're working with. End this story before it gets worse." "I can't do that." "Can't or won't?" "Both." She hung up on me, but not before I heard something in her voice I'd never heard before. Genuine fear. I walked back to Danny's room where he was watching the same news story on his phone. "Dad, is this about what happened to me?" "Yes." "Good." His voice was hard, older than his 19 years. "I hope they destroy him." "They might, but it's going to get ugly before it's over." "I don't care. He had his thugs break my leg, and Mom just stood there and let it happen. They deserve whatever they get." I looked at my son, this good kid who'd been forced to grow up too fast, and felt a mixture of pride and sadness. Pride because he was strong enough to handle this. Sadness because he had to. "Danny, there's something you should know. This is just the beginning. Things are going to get a lot worse for your mother and Blackwood before they get better." "What do you mean?" "I mean, I'm not done with them yet. Not even close." Danny smiled, and for a moment he looked like the kid who used to help me work on cars in the garage. "Good," he said. "Give them heck, Dad." The second domino fell 3 days later, and it was even more devastating than the first. I was at work, trying to concentrate on a project design, when my phone buzzed with a text from Eleanor Blackwood. "Check the newspaper, online edition. Business section." The headline made me smile. "Blackwood Motors under investigation for tax evasion, money laundering." The story was detailed and damning. According to anonymous sources within the dealership, Blackwood had been using his business to wash money for several questionable clients, inflating car sales figures and hiding income from the IRS. The investigation had apparently been going on for months, but the recent publicity had prompted federal authorities to accelerate their timeline. My phone rang immediately. It was Sarah, and she sounded panicked. "Tom, we need to talk. Right now. I'm at work. This can't wait. Meet me at Denny's on 5th Street in 20 minutes. "Why there?" "Because it's neutral ground and because we need privacy." I found Sarah in a back booth, looking like she hadn't slept in days. Her usually perfect appearance was disheveled. Her makeup couldn't hide the dark circles under her eyes, and her hands were shaking slightly as she stirred her coffee. "You look terrible," I said, sliding into the booth across from her. "Thanks. That's exactly what I needed to hear." "What's so urgent that it couldn't wait?" Sarah looked around the restaurant, making sure no one was listening, then leaned forward. "I'm in trouble, Tom. Serious trouble." "What kind of trouble?" "The kind that could end my career and put me in prison." That got my attention. "Explain." "Richard's been using me to handle some of his business arrangements. I thought it was legitimate. Complex, but legitimate. But after this investigation started, I've been going through the files and..." She paused, running her hands through her hair. "I think I've been helping him launder money without knowing it." "How is that possible?" "You're a lawyer, Sarah. You know what money laundering looks like." He made it look like legitimate business transactions. Car sales, financing arrangements, real estate deals, but the amounts never made sense. And the clients? She shook her head. "I should have asked more questions, but you didn't because you were too busy sleeping with him." "That's not fair, isn't it? You were so caught up in your affair that you stopped doing your due diligence?" Sarah's composure finally cracked. "Yes, okay. Yes, I was distracted. I made mistakes. I trusted him when I should have been more careful. Are you happy now?" "Ecstatic. What do you want from me?" I want you to make this stop. Call off whoever you're working with. End this investigation before it destroys both of us. Both of us? If I go down for money laundering, do you think that won't affect you? Do you think the scandal won't touch Danny and Jessica? Do you think your engineering firm is going to keep employing the husband of a convicted felon? She had a point, but I wasn't ready to concede it. Maybe you should have thought about that before you started screwing your client. Tom, please. I know I hurt you. I know I made terrible choices, but we have children to think about. We can work this out. Work what out? You want to stay married now? I want to protect our family. If we present a united front, if we show that we're working through our problems together, it might minimize the damage. I stared at her across the table, this woman who had betrayed me in the worst possible way, and felt something close to pity. She was scared, desperate, willing to say anything to save herself. What about Blackwood? He's not returning my calls. I think he's trying to distance himself from me, probably on his lawyer's advice. So he's throwing you under the bus. It looks that way. The same way you threw me under the bus when you started sleeping with him. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. I know I deserve this. I know I brought it on myself. But Danny and Jessica don't deserve to have their lives destroyed because of my mistakes. She was right about that, at least. Whatever Sarah had done, our children shouldn't have to pay for it. What exactly are you asking me to do? Call off your attack dogs. Stop the investigation. Let Richard and me handle this quietly, without all the publicity. In exchange for what? An uncontested divorce. You keep the house, I'll take minimal alimony, we'll share custody of the kids, and you'll confess to the affair publicly? Sarah flinched. If that's what it takes? I pretended to consider it, but I'd already made my decision. Sarah was scared, which meant the plan was working. But she wasn't broken yet, and neither was Blackwood. I'll think about it, I said, standing up. Tom, please. I'm begging you. You should have thought about begging before you let your boyfriend's thugs break our son's leg. I left her sitting in the booth, crying into her coffee, and drove home to call Eleanor Blackwood. How are you feeling about the progress so far? I asked when she answered. Satisfied, but not finished. Are you ready for the final phase? What did you have in mind? Something that will ensure they never recover from this. Something that will make them both wish they'd never heard each other's names. I'm listening. Eleanor's plan was elegant, ruthless, and perfectly legal. By the time she finished explaining it, I was smiling for the first time in weeks. When do we start? I asked. Tonight? The final phase of Eleanor's plan required perfect timing and absolute secrecy. She'd spent the past week gathering evidence, making phone calls, and arranging what she called the grand finale. I met her at a coffee shop downtown at 8 p.m., both of us dressed casually to avoid attention. She handed me a thick manila envelope. Everything you need is in there, she said. Financial records, email printouts, photographs, recorded phone conversations, all obtained legally through private investigators and public records requests. I opened the envelope and scanned the contents. It was devastating. Clear evidence of Blackwood's money laundering operation, Sarah's involvement, and connections to several other prominent local figures who'd been turning a blind eye in exchange for political contributions. This is enough to destroy them both, I said. That's the idea, but we're not just releasing it randomly. We're going to make sure it has maximum impact. Eleanor explained the plan. Tomorrow night, the Chamber of Commerce was hosting its annual fundraising gala, the biggest social event of the year, attended by everyone who mattered in local politics and business. Both Richard and Sarah would be there, probably trying to maintain appearances and reassure their friends that the recent publicity was just a misunderstanding. I've arranged for copies of everything in that envelope to be delivered to every major news outlet in the state. Time to break just as the gala begins, Eleanor said. But that's not the best part. What's the best part? I'm going to be at the gala, and I'm going to make sure everyone there knows exactly what my husband has been doing and with whom. You're going to confront them publicly? I'm going to destroy them publicly. In front of everyone they've been trying to impress, everyone whose opinion matters to them. Eleanor's smile was cold and satisfied. By the time I'm finished, there'll be social pariahs in this town. What do you need me to do? Nothing. Just stay home and watch the news. This is my show now. I drove home feeling a mixture of anticipation and unease. Part of me wanted to be there to see Sarah and Blackwood's faces when their world collapsed around them. But another part of me was starting to wonder if we'd gone too far. That doubt disappeared when I got home and found Danny waiting for me in the living room. He was off his crutches now, but still limping, still carrying the physical reminder of what Blackwood's men had done to him. "Dad, there's something I need to tell you." "What is it?" "Jessica called me today. She's been staying with Mom at some hotel downtown, and apparently Mom's been drinking a lot, crying all the time, talking about how you're trying to destroy her life." "What did Jessica say?" "She said she doesn't want to live with Mom anymore. She wants to come home." That surprised me. Jessica had always been closer to Sarah, had always seemed embarrassed by my blue-collar job and our modest lifestyle. Why the change of heart? "I think she's finally seeing Mom for who she really is. The lies, the selfishness, the way she's been trying to make herself the victim in all this." Danny paused. "She asked me if what happened to me was really Mom's fault." "What did you tell her?" I told her the truth, that Mom chose her boyfriend over her own son, and that she's been lying about it ever since. I sat down next to Danny on the couch. "How are you feeling about all this, really?" "Honestly, I'm proud of you, Dad. For the first time in my life, I'm seeing you fight back instead of just taking whatever people dish out. Mom and her boyfriend thought they could walk all over us, and you're showing them they were wrong. Even if it gets ugly? Especially if it gets ugly. They deserve everything they get." We watched television together for a while, but I couldn't concentrate. Tomorrow night, Sarah and Blackwood would face the consequences of their actions in the most public, humiliating way possible. After that, it would be over. They'd be finished in this town. Their reputations destroyed, their futures uncertain. I should have felt satisfied. Instead, I felt empty. I didn't go to the Chamber of Commerce gala, but I didn't need to. Thanks to Eleanor's connections and careful planning, I had a front row seat to the destruction of my wife and her lover. It started at 7 p.m., just as the cocktail hour was beginning. Eleanor had arranged for the story to break simultaneously on 3 different news websites, complete with documents, photographs, and recorded conversations that painted a picture of corruption, adultery, and criminal conspiracy that went to the highest levels of local government. My phone started ringing at 7:15. The first call was from a reporter asking for comment about my wife's involvement in the money laundering scheme. I declined to comment. The second call was from my boss asking if the news stories were true and whether my employment might become a liability for the firm. I told him I'd discuss it with him Monday. The third call was from Jessica. "Dad, what's happening? There are reporters outside the hotel and Mom is freaking out." "Where are you now?" "In the hotel room with Mom. She's been drinking and crying and screaming at the TV. "Dad, I'm scared." "I'm coming to get you." "What about Mom? Your mother made her choices, Jessica. Now she has to live with them." I drove to the downtown Marriott where Sarah had been staying since our confrontation. The parking lot was full of news vans and reporters, all hoping to get a statement from the disgraced attorney at the center of the biggest scandal to hit our town in years. I managed to get to Jessica's room without being recognized. She was packed and ready to go, her face pale but determined. "Is Mom here?" "She left an hour ago. She said she was going to the gala to face her accusers." Jessica shook her head. "Dad, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I didn't see what she was really like before now." "You don't need to apologize for anything, sweetheart. Let's just go home." We made it to the parking garage without being spotted by the media. But as we were driving away, Jessica's phone buzzed with a text message. "It's from my friend Emma. She's at the gala with her parents." Jessica read the message and her eyes widened. "Dad, you need to see this." She showed me her phone. Emma had sent a video, shaky, obviously shot secretly from across a crowded ballroom, but clear enough to see what was happening. Sarah was standing in the middle of the dance floor, swaying slightly, obviously drunk, trying to address the crowd of elegantly dressed guests. Her voice was slurred but audible. "You all think you know what happened, but you don't understand. Tom is trying to destroy me because I fell in love with someone else. He's vindictive and cruel," and the video cut off as someone, probably Emma's parents, made her stop recording. "There's more," Jessica said, scrolling through her messages. Emma says Mrs. Blackwood stood up and started reading from some papers, telling everyone exactly what her husband and Mom had been doing. She says Mr. Blackwood tried to leave, but Mrs. Blackwood followed him, still reading out loud. Everyone was staring and whispering. I could picture it. Eleanor Blackwood, elegant and dignified, methodically destroying her husband and his mistress in front of the entire social elite of our town. It was perfect, ruthless, and absolutely devastating. Emma says security finally escorted Mom out, but not before she tried to grab the microphone from the band. She was screaming something about how everyone was against her. We drove home in silence, both of us processing what had just happened. Sarah's public meltdown at the gala would be the final nail in her professional coffin. No law firm would hire an attorney who'd been involved in money laundering and who'd humiliated herself so publicly. When we got home, Danny was waiting with a huge grin on his face. Dad, please tell me you saw the news. We heard about it. It's even better than that. Check this out. He showed me his laptop where a live stream of the gala was still running. Someone's been broadcasting the whole thing online. The part where Mrs. Blackwood read all those documents, it's already gone viral. #BlackwoodGate is trending on Twitter. I watched as Eleanor Blackwood, looking like an avenging angel in her elegant black dress, systematically destroyed her husband's reputation and business relationships. She was calm, dignified, and absolutely merciless. There's more, Danny said, pulling up another video. This is Mom trying to grab the microphone. The video showed Sarah, disheveled and obviously intoxicated, lunging for the band's microphone while security guards tried to restrain her. Her dress was torn, her hair was a mess, and she was screaming incoherently about betrayal and conspiracy. It was painful to watch, but I felt no sympathy for her. She'd made her choices, and now she was facing the consequences. Where is she now? I asked. Nobody knows. She disappeared after security threw her out of the hotel. My phone rang. It was Eleanor Blackwood. Tom, I thought you should know. It's finished. Richard's business is destroyed, his political connections have abandoned him, and his reputation will never recover. Your wife, she paused. Your wife has done a very thorough job of destroying herself tonight. Thank you, I said, for everything. You're welcome. And Tom, keep your promise. It's over now. Don't let revenge consume the rest of your life. She hung up, and I looked around at my children, Danny proud and satisfied, Jessica relieved to be home, both of them looking at me with respect I hadn't seen in years. So what happens now? Jessica asked. Now we rebuild, I said, without her. Sarah came home 3 days later, but she wasn't the same woman who'd been living a double life just weeks before. The confident attorney who'd been planning to take me for everything I was worth had been replaced by someone broken, desperate, and completely defeated. I was in the garage working on my truck when she pulled into the driveway in a taxi. Through the window, I watched her pay the driver and walk slowly toward the house, carrying a single suitcase. She looked like she'd aged 10 years in the past week. I found her in the kitchen, sitting at the table with her head in her hands. Hello, Sarah. She looked up, and I was shocked by her appearance. Her face was gaunt, her eyes were red and swollen from crying, and her usually perfect hair was lank and unwashed. Tom, her voice was barely a whisper. Where have you been? Driving, thinking, trying to figure out how everything went so wrong so fast? I sat down across from her, the same table where we'd shared thousands of meals over the years, where we'd helped our kids with homework, where we'd planned our future together. How bad is it? I asked. As bad as it can get. The law firm fired me. The state bar is investigating me for ethics violations. The FBI wants to interview me about Richard's business dealings. She paused, wiping her eyes with a tissue. I'm probably going to be indicted. What about Blackwood? Richard won't talk to me. His lawyers told him to stay away from me, that I'm toxic to his defense. She laughed bitterly. Funny how quickly love disappears when things get difficult. What did you expect? I don't know. I guess I thought he actually cared about me. But when everything fell apart, he threw me away like garbage. We sat in silence for a few minutes. Outside, I could hear the sounds of normal suburban life. Kids playing, lawnmowers running, dogs barking. It all seemed surreal after the chaos of the past few weeks. The children won't speak to me, Sarah said finally. Can you blame them? No, Jessica won't even look at me, and Danny. She started crying again. Danny told me I was dead to him, my own son. You chose Blackwood over your family, Sarah. Did you think there wouldn't be consequences? I never meant for anyone to get hurt. I never meant for Danny to be injured or for any of this to happen. But it did happen, and now you have to live with it. Sarah looked around the kitchen, taking in the familiar surroundings. The refrigerator covered with old family photos, the coffee maker I'd bought her for Christmas 3 years ago, the window over the sink where she used to stand and watch the kids play in the backyard. I know you'll never forgive me, she said. I know I've lost my family, my career, probably my freedom. But I need you to know that I'm sorry. I'm sorry for everything. Sorry doesn't fix Danny's leg. Sorry doesn't undo the lies and betrayal. Sorry doesn't give me back the 22 years I wasted believing in you. I know. What do you want from me, Sarah? Nothing. I just wanted to say goodbye. She stood up, picking up her suitcase. I'm leaving town. There's nothing left for me here, and my presence just makes things harder for you and the kids. Where will you go? I have a sister in Oregon. She's agreed to let me stay with her until I figure out what comes next. She paused at the kitchen door. Tom, for what it's worth, you were a good husband, a good father. You deserve better than what I gave you. Yes, I did. She walked toward the front door, then stopped and turned back. Will you tell the children that I love them? That everything I did wrong was about me, not about them? I'll think about it. Thank you. I watched from the window as she got into another taxi and drove away. 22 years of marriage ended with a 5-minute conversation in our kitchen. My phone buzzed with a text message. It was from Eleanor Blackwood. Richard filed for bankruptcy today. The dealership is being liquidated. Thought you'd want to know. I smiled and deleted the message. It was over. Sarah was gone, Blackwood was ruined, and my family could finally start healing. Danny and Jessica came home an hour later, and I told them their mother had stopped by to say goodbye. Good, Danny said. I hope she stays gone. Jessica was quieter, more conflicted. Do you think she'll be okay? Your mother is a survivor, I told her. She'll figure out how to rebuild her life, just like we're going to rebuild ours. That night, for the first time in weeks, I slept peacefully. The war was over, and I had won. But more importantly, my children were safe, my home was secure, and the people who had betrayed us had paid the price for their actions. Some might call what I did revenge. I prefer to think of it as justice.